kind of help me in terms of just where you are in the world and in our region, maybe. So homelessness and the meaning of home. And just to call out the sketch, which I love, is from a sketchbook I was able to actually hold with, with gloved hands. And it was done by Victor Steinbrook, who a lot of you probably know or have heard of, historically architect in Seattle. And this is a series of sketches that he did during the Great Depression of Hooverville. And Hooverville, there were many Hoovervilles across the country, several Hoovervilles in Seattle, one right near you in Magnolia. The longest lasting and largest Hooverville was in south of Seattle. Okay, yeah, acknowledgements. These great people, and I'm just looking at them and watching, thinking about how many of them have been ended by the current administration. The Fulbright has been ended as well. I was very fortunate to have a Fulbright based in Edinburgh and London to research the English poor laws, which factor a lot into my Skid Road book. So this is me, a younger me on the left. I was pregnant with my son, Jonathan, who's about to turn 38. And this is taken in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia. I was the only healthcare provider for a while at the multidisciplinary Richmond Street Center. And this was during the kind of the early mid 1980s when there was a rise of homelessness across our country, including Richmond, Virginia, including Seattle. A lot related to deinstitutionalization of people with mental health issues, but also returning Vietnam vets and other kinds of things, especially Reagan defunding of housing supports. And this, I'm washing the feet of a returning Vietnam vet who had really serious PTSD. Still do foot care, as you can see on the right. Did it just this past yesterday, just this past yesterday, at the Elizabeth Gregory home. It's a women and female identified, non-binary identified folks in the University District, and I have medical and nursing students with me. I love having them do foot care because, for one thing, it's humbling. You know, they're actually below the client or the patient who they're helping to take care of. And it also not only kind of medical things that come up, you know, diabetes, other kinds of things, but it also oftentimes, because of the hands-on care, helps to open up other kinds of discussions and helps to build rapport. So these are some of my books. Those are the first three, and this is my most recent, came out in November of this year, Way Home: Journeys Through Homelessness. And it's taking what I did in Skid Road, which was the history of health and homelessness in Seattle and King County, to kind of the current landscape of homelessness and a lot of what was done during the pandemic, both positive and negative in terms of homelessness, and looking at health and social policies and which ones really work to help people, prevent people from falling into homelessness, lessen their time in homelessness, and help to keep them from falling back into homelessness once they have housing. The work, the research, part of the research for both Skid Road book and also Way Home is a series of now 63 oral history interviews that I've done with people in the Seattle, King County area who kind of work and live at the intersection of health and homelessness. And these include, kind of some of the big names in politics, like Charlie Royer, Frank Chop, who, of course, have recently died, have left us. And then also with people who have experienced really significant homelessness in our area, but who have not only survived it, have had the resilience, inner and outer strengths, and are now stably housed, have jobs, and a lot of times are working to give back to people experiencing homelessness in our area. And so these are two of them, Anitra Freeman, and then also Derek Belgard, who is the executive director of the Chief Seattle Club. So this is the plan that I have for you this evening. And we're going to do a values clarification / writing exercise. So hopefully you have pen and paper or something, tablet, whatever, that you can write on. For this, you do not have to share any of the outcome of your writing, but I'll give you a chance to do that either in the chat or coming on speaker. And focus also on stories of people experiencing homelessness, and a lot of time for discussion and Q&A. So first of all, just some definitions to throw out there, some terminology that you either use yourself or you've heard used. I still use homelessness, but I really try to push myself to people first language of people experiencing homelessness. You also hear, or you might use yourself, the term houselessness, and this is especially by people in advocacy, housing advocacy, and low-income housing advocacy, and where they are emphasizing the fact that homelessness is really about not having a safe, affordable, kind of permanent place to live. However, both from my own experience and in homelessness, and then working with people experiencing homelessness of various varieties over now 40 years. Homelessness is really much more than not having a safe, affordable place to live. It really has to do with breakages from all sorts of different reasons, family connections, community connections, and social exclusion that goes on around homelessness, including like the stigma that we put on people experiencing homelessness, and also people internalize that stigma that can really have very, very negative effects on them. As far as I know, this definition still exists. You've probably read that or heard that our Housing and Urban Development Office in Seattle was summarily closed recently, but this is working definition, federal definition, trying to have a unified definition of homelessness. And just to point out a couple in here, one is individuals or families who are fleeing domestic violence or intimate partner violence, and that's a really large segment, especially for women or LGBTQ identified folks, as well as unaccompanied youth under age 25. So that means they're not with their families. And I'll talk more about that. This is the 2024 point in time count, everywhere across the country. I don't know what's going to happen this year with the change of administration, but any area in our country that gets any kind of federal support, FEMA money, for instance, for emergency shelters, food support, and other kinds of things, they have to do a point in time count at the end of January. And it's not an exact science, but it does give us, if the methodology doesn't change, it gives us an idea of kind of where we are in terms of homelessness. So this 2024, over 16,000 people experiencing homelessness. And you can see that compared to 2022, the number of unsheltered homelessness, people in homelessness had risen. We do know think there was a Seattle Times article about it today, that our current mayor came in on a campaign promise of cleaning up Seattle, doing encampment and also vehicle residency clearances, which he has done. And that is controversial in terms of where people are going to go. The 2025 point in time count should be coming out in this next month. So this one, I just want to point out the unfortunate interaction cycle of law enforcement, incarceration, and whether jail or prison, and homelessness. People who have misdemeanors or something that's not a violent crime, who under, again, our current mayor and city attorney general, people end up in jail or even in prison. And I think a lot of people don't know, but people who are in our state prisons, they have to be, like, once they've served their time, and they are released into the general public, they have to go back to the jurisdiction where they were arrested. So, for instance, a little shout out to Humanities Washington, Speakers Bureau. This is my 16th, either in person or virtual workshop on homelessness. I was very grateful to have the opportunity this past summer to go to Connell, Washington, and work with 50 incarcerated men who are at Coyote Ridge medium security prison. And the number of men who came up, they definitely reacted to this slide a lot and had stories. And the number of men who came up to me afterwards in their library, those have just lost funding too, and talked with me about how they were going to be released soon, and that they had no idea. They didn't want to go back to Seattle because they had gotten clean and sober and wanted to stay clean and sober, and were afraid that just the environment would have them start using again and end up in jail and prison. So a couple of positive parts of homelessness, especially in our state, but also in our country, and this is in Washington State, through a kind of a concerted effort run through the Office of Homeless Youth at the state level. Lots of nonprofits across the state and municipalities like Yakima, other kinds of places, working to identify early on young people, teens and young adults who are at risk of homelessness or are newly homeless, and trying to get them stabilized. And so over 8 years, this report just came out about 6 months ago. Over the past 8 years, that there was a 40% reduction in youth homelessness in communities across Washington State. And the idea is to try to support good enough families and communities so that young people don't have to, like, for instance, come to Seattle and other kinds of areas. And it shows you some of the leaders in this. Unfortunately, funding cuts are putting this in jeopardy. And already, I also work with Roots Young Adult Shelter in the U District. It's for young people ages 18 to 24, and they are seeing almost double the number of young people who they were seeing before in 2024. The other one that is a success story is ending veteran, or really significantly reducing veteran homelessness. And this has had bipartisan support until recently, begun under the Obama administration, that the Ending Veteran Homelessness Initiative, over 13 years of program data, there was a 55.3% decrease in homelessness among veterans. And that was compared to an 8.6% decrease for the general population in the US during that time period. Really robust kind of healthcare VA care outreach teams, including here in Seattle. I know some of the physicians and nurses. A success story that again is in jeopardy because current administration is already defunding those. So, to remember that poor health and trauma, especially kind of unaddressed, untreated childhood traumas, can cause and contribute to homelessness for people, kind of individual vulnerabilities. And that's within the larger structural issues that are going on in terms of inequities and homelessness. But homelessness complicates healthcare treatment and the recovery process, and then poor health and trauma can end up prolonging homelessness. And trauma often contributes to homelessness, especially for teens, young adults, LGBTQ folks, and women. Homelessness itself, especially, well, even being in a well-run emergency shelter, but especially if somebody's having to sleep outside or in their vehicles, that homelessness is itself a risk factor for more trauma. I took care of a 70-year-old woman on Sunday, kind of long time patient at our clinic at Elizabeth Gregory Home, who has unaddressed schizophrenia, and she lives outside. And not too long ago, she came in with a huge gash in her head. We had to, get her to the emergency department because she told us that she'd been living outside and somebody threw a brick at her. Homelessness is a deeper trauma than active combat for U.S. veterans. And hopefully, if you've been in active combat or you know someone in active combat, to just kind of let that sink in of just how traumatic homelessness itself is for people. And also the role of historical trauma, especially for our Indigenous brothers and sisters in the Seattle area, as well as across our state and country, and African Americans, and what's called sanctuary trauma, which is despite our best intentions, like having emergency shelters, et cetera, that kind of like the level of noise and chaos that goes on can actually be re-traumatizing for people. So now we're going to get into where I want you to write, or at least to reflect. It's the meaning of home exercise part of this. So I want you to take a few minutes and write out as many words as you can think of to describe what home means to you. So this can be any kind of word, nouns, verbs, whatever. And try to get at least 10. And I'll give you a few minutes here. Just checking my time. I'll check in with you to see if you're done in a minute or so. But again, try, I mean, this is like brainstorming, home, just think about it for you and list out as many words as fast as you can and try to get at least 10.
And Josephine, just as an FYI, there's a question in the chat that you could consider holding on to the end, but I want you to know it's there. It's what is now available in terms of respite care for unhoused people leaving the hospital.
Yes, I have a lot to say on that. So yeah, just Marcy, if you can remind me to get to that question.
You bet.
At the end. Short answer is we have some, not enough. I'm sorry I can't see you when I'm in-person workshops. I can ask people to put their pen or paper down or pencil down and stare at me or something to let me know if they're finished. Uh, Hopefully you've got at least 10. But I'm going to go ahead and move along with this. So the other thing I want to say is this is a values clarification exercise. As such, the caveat to remember that we can never truly understand what somebody else is going through. And so just, to have that as a caveat. At the same time, I think that this can help to kind of deepen your own understanding of home and of homelessness. So next, I want you to take that list you just have and circle the top 5 most important words or items. So the ones that you feel like you couldn't live without, most important. So that part is relatively easy. It does start getting more difficult. So what I'm going to do is, again, taking your 5 most important words or items, I'm going to ask you to imagine a series of unfortunate events. And with each of these events, I want you to cross off one word or item. It doesn't have to like match up with the unfortunate event. And all of these events are based on, reality of events that contribute significantly to homelessness in our city and state and country. So first of all, you lose your job. Too many people are experiencing that now, or whoever is like the main contributor to the household income loses their job. So you cross off one. Okay. Now you incur, or your household incurs, a major medical expense or debt. And again, not enough people know that, for one thing, this is a leading contributor to homelessness in our country. Will become even more so with cuts to Medicaid. And it's unheard of in our peer countries, including our neighbor to the north, Canada. Okay, so you have 2 of those 5 items that are crossed off. Now, a fire of some sort, apartment, house fire, or a wildfire that comes through your community. So you're left with 2, and the next one is difficult. So, major earthquake reality in most of the West Coast. And so I need you to cross off that 4th word. And so you're left with only one word or item that you try to imagine that you carry with you into homelessness. And to remember that in reality, the vast majority of people, families, teens, elderly people, whatever, don't even get the luxury of taking that one item with them when they become homeless. Okay. So these are some weavings of the words that people have come up with in different workshops that I've done. There's some from young people. This one I want to point out, I think it's an important juxtaposition that not everybody has had ever in their lives have had a safe, supportive, loving home. And that fear, which is from a young woman in one of my workshops. And so to remember that, and this is especially important for us to remember if we start getting into judgmentalism about people like, we found them shelter, we got them off the streets, we got them, out of their vehicles and got them shelter or a tiny home or permanent supportive housing, and they just left. Is that, especially for permanent supportive housing, where somebody now has a place to call their own, that is that's if they've never had a safe place to live, it's really frightening to them, and that contributes to them leaving. So what we're going to do now with your word, I want you to write a poem. It's American Sentence. It's from the Beat Poets. They came up with this as an American version of the Japanese haiku. So it's a poem of 17 syllables, and I'll give you a couple of examples here. Todd was a gentleman, middle-aged gentleman living in Tent City 3 with a workshop that we did at University of Washington. And so his word was bulldog, and the one he came up with was, my bulldog, my protector, chased away the pain, comfort in the rain. And I'll give you a couple more examples and then ask you. This is from a workshop that I did with homeless teens and young adults in University District. This is from the School of Social Work. And so some of them that are here, the dog is snoring, covered in her blanket, warmed by the group's campfire. Another one where you shed your travel pack, where you wash your socks and underwear. Another one, chicken mole boils on the stove. Starlight comes through the window. Quite beautiful poems. And this one, for all of you cat lovers, another middle-aged man who was living in Tent City 3 in a workshop, Tuna was his word. Tuna came one day, scratched at our door, begged for food, and never went away. Home is where the cat is. Some of these aren't exactly 17 syllables. I don't care about that. Count on your fingers, try to get as close as you can, and I'll give you a few moments to write your own American sentence, and give you the opportunity, if you want to share them in the chat. Marcy can read them out loud, but no pressure. You don't have to share yours. I'm going to give you another minute or so. Marcy, are any coming through chat?
We do not have any at this time.
All right. Any brave souls, if you're finished and you want to write yours out. But again, no pressure. And also in the Zoom talks, workshops that I do like this, I also give you a chance. Sometimes people are still working on theirs and want to share them at the end. So
Josephine, I have a couple I can read to you.
Oh, yay. Okay.
The first one is, home is where you know my name, call it lovingly and ease my pain.
Nice.
The second is, family sticks together, giving our warmth and love.
Beautiful. Good. And if hopefully I won't forget to say this, but I'll just say it now, so I don't forget it, is even if you don't want to share yours, like in chat or whatever, this evening in the workshop, I do encourage you, if you've written one, or even if you just have that one word that you ended up with, is to share your reflections and your poems with loved ones, because it can really help to open up meaningful discussions.
Let me add 2 more.
Oh, yeah, okay.
When all seems lost, embrace the hope of family, my light in the dark. And
Okay.
family to lean on, cat to sit beside me, warmth waiting inside with soup.
Oh, lovely. Both of them are lovely. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on. But again, you can, anytime during this, if you want to add your American sentence in chat, we can do that. So this one, public art down in Pioneer Square, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Chief Seattle, now the streets are our home. And this is to remember disproportionality. And homelessness is not an equal opportunity, although anybody, well, won't say anybody, but people can, fall into homelessness for lots of different reasons. Structural, the home mortgage crisis caused a lot of homelessness for people. And then unfortunately, again, what's going on in our country now is already causing a lot more homelessness. But is to remember that in our area, in Seattle, only 1% of people self-identify as being Indigenous, whereas like something like 36% of people who are experiencing chronic homelessness are Native American, Native Alaskan, Indigenous. And this is why Chief Seattle Club came into existence. It was a Catholic started organization, but at least for the past 15 years has been Native led. Absolutely amazing, amazing program. And again, led by Derek Belgar. And I will put a little blip out there. Sorry, a little advertisement. On the 18th of May, if you look at the Seattle Public Library, the Central Library, Derek Belgard, Sarah Rankin, a lawyer, amazing lawyer from Seattle University, and I will be doing a talk on criminalization of poverty and homelessness and what to do to counter that. So this one, I also want to call out, I'm a nurse, practitioner, public health person, is also for all of us to remember that homelessness kills, really ages people significantly, worsens chronic conditions, acute conditions. And in our country, the average age of death for somebody experiencing especially chronic homelessness is 20 years younger than that of our overall population. And hopefully you've seen these around the streets of Seattle. And if you haven't, I encourage you to look down the sidewalks because they're there. This, of course, is in the U District near where significant Methodist church had been with homeless services. Now, still a hole in the ground, but in the foreground, the bronze leaves are there. They have a person's name, their year of birth, and their year of death. And those are for anybody kind of experiencing homelessness outside who dies, especially by violence or too soon. And then this is down in, I guess, the newly reopened Victor Steinbrook Park, except I think not the totem pole since there's controversy on them. But this is where those bronze leaves come from, or, metaphorically. And you see the little cutouts underneath where the pigeons are. This is the Tree of Life Homeless Remembrance Project. And it's our country's only public homeless remembrance art and sculpture. And I, by the way, took this photograph and asked the men's permission first. This is a long time hangout and meeting place for Indigenous people in our city. So a couple things, evidence-based interventions, housing first does work. It's having a lot of, it's not, a cure for all homelessness, but it does work instead of, requiring people to stop drinking, to stop doing drugs, to be able, to come into a shelter and stay there, or to come into permanent supportive housing. They get the housing, and that can oftentimes, just like with the 1811 East Lake building shown here for people with chronic alcoholism, can significantly reduce their use. Obviously, we also need, and we have, sober only housing first options, or housing options, including permanent supportive housing. We need those choices. The other evidence-based intervention, since somebody asked about this, Sarah, medical respite. And we do have a really excellent medical respite program that's right across the street from Harborview Medical Center's emergency department. Harborview and health department, et cetera, help to run that. They are undergoing renovations to try to increase capacity. And that's for people who are not so ill or injured that they have to be, hospitalized at Harborview or wherever, but they really are not in good enough shape to just, say goodbye, be discharged to shelters or on the streets, and where they can get nursing, 24-hour, 24/7 nursing care, and also physician care. Community public health nurses included in outreach teams, and especially people with lived experience of homelessness are very important as even leaders of outreach teams, which we do have even here at U Heights, the vehicle residency outreach teams that my nursing students have the privilege of going out with every week around King County, are led by people with lived experience of vehicle residents and who are now stabilized and harm reduction. So these as a lot of times people ask me, I want to do something, but I don't even know where to start. And the first thing that I tell people is respond with a smile and a kind word, even if it's no, sorry. If somebody asks you for money or is engaging you, carry and hand out fast food certificates if you want to do that. Also super important is to know the source of local resources to offer people. In King County, an excellent one that's updated every year is done by the Real Change. It's also online, and they also have free little booklets as the Emerald City Resource Guide, and also 211 in the Seattle area. And that's not just for people experiencing homelessness, but also who are needing lots of other health and social support services. Also support and volunteer at a local agency that provides services and upstream solutions. And I emphasize here volunteer because we have found that studies on empathy show that having direct positive interactions with people, experiencing all of the different isms, social exclusion, including people living in homelessness, that really helps to build empathy and for us to really start realizing that they aren't problems, that they're people. And, working on direct services and upstream solutions. Our programs are really needing more volunteers and more monetary and other support than ever, again, because of cuts. Elizabeth Gregory Home, where I work, they're having to cut down on, they always serve a hot breakfast and a hot lunch and give like takeaway, non-perishable items for food. They have lost a lot of their funding and are having to scramble to try to provide healthy meals for people. And they also really need volunteers. And then some of the advocacy groups that I personally like and encourage you to look into, maybe support Habitat for Humanity, very active across our country, wherever I've gone in the state here in Washington. They have local chapters of Habitat for Humanity, and all of these others. There's also a national homelessness law center that's very active now. And National Healthcare for the Homeless Council has lots of really excellent resources, whether or not you're a healthcare provider, and I'm on their policy committee. So that's what I have, some resources. But yeah, I want to open it up to discussion, more questions, and more of your American sentences if we have them.
Yep, and Josephine, I did, just so everyone knows, I posted the link to the survey for tonight's presentation in the chat section. And it would be really lovely if everybody could take a moment and do that. And then we have 2 more that have come up. The first one is still, time happens, still alive, hardly, hard time.
Yes, love.
The second one is what's left carries me for now. I wonder how my family will make it through. And Josephine, maybe I can kick us off with a question. And I don't know that I'm unique in this feeling, but it's very hard right now to know where I can have the most impact because it feels like the needs are everywhere. Not just in regards to the topic you're talking, like they're just everywhere. And really, if you had to say, or what could you, how could you help folks kind of deal with the, I, it's almost like it's a scatter. It's hard to focus on where to make an impact, how to help. And even with everything you offered, there was a moment when you were talking where I was just completely overcome with, oh my gosh, like it was a bad situation before January.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but where do you go from
Yeah,
here?
thanks. Yeah, and before the event, sorry, I was like trying to clean my screen because it was like feeling like that. I think you use the analogy of a wet blanket, or just like suffocating kinds of things, and overwhelming needs, within our own communities, our families, our friendship networks, and that's just going to increase, unfortunately. And I think of going back to that whole thing of this light of mine, like what are your gifts, your talents, um, what gives you energy, and how you can translate those into working on something really concrete that needs your help. Doesn't have to be homelessness. I mean, immigrant kinds of issues, which of course overlap significantly with homelessness. And like hopefully I didn't mention this, but I'm helping out with the did I already mention this? The Seattle King County, large, yeah. I just can't believe it. We have to have an ICE protocol down there for people too poor to afford basic health care and dental care. So that's what I'd say is, just try to identify what it is that you're good with. I do think it's super important to, not have tunnel vision in terms of just looking, after ourselves.
Mm.
We have to take care of ourselves, just like, of course, the oxygen mask analogy. But of starting with something that's like right in your neighborhood, get to know whatever it is that they're working on. We need more people to step up and join, different kinds of efforts, and pace yourself in terms of what this work is. Identify what, and Marcy, you and Maria and I were talking beforehand of resilience, but also resistance, of knowing what fulfills you or what feeds you, so that you're not just becoming burned out. That does nobody any good. For me, my 3 grandgirls that are right around the corner from you, Marcy, my brand new granddaughter. Yeah, they just give me joy. And so I know by now in my life of what fills me in terms of energy. But the making sure that I don't just get into that bubble and stay in that bubble, that I'm also aware of what's going on around me in our country and in our world, and trying to make a difference however we can.
Thank you for that. Don Fornoff has a question and a few thoughts. So Don, do you want to go off mute and add what you wanted to say? There you go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Don Fornoff. I'm Betsy's husband, and I am co-chair of the Bishop's Task Force on Homelessness for the Diocese of Olympia. One of the other members is on this call, Elizabeth Maupin, who is from the East Side and has been very involved in this for a long time. We are attempting to get our churches, all roughly, I think, 100 throughout Western Washington, to put together coalitions to go to their own communities, find out what the problems are in terms of homelessness, and to try to do something to take care of them. We believe that the faith community doing interfaith work can be one of the most valuable groups that can do it. So my question would be, what do you find has been important to form these coalitions, and how do you find the success rate of them in your research?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you for your work on that. I do like to point out, I mean, I am a transplant to Seattle. I'm from the South and the East Coast, but I've lived here 30.5 years. It's fascinating to me, especially doing research on Seattle, King County, around, public health and homelessness, throughout our history, that even though now our city is the most like non-faith specific of anywhere in the country, at the same time, we have to recognize that even today, but throughout our history, that that churches and others, communities of faith have had an outsized impact for the good of our city and our region. So I think, yes, it's needing to come back. I mean, when I started doing this work again in the early mid 80s, I worked with a lot of faith-based, actually the Catholic order of sisters funded my work for a while, and other Protestant synagogues, etc. That we were hoping to work our way out of homelessness. We really thought that we would be able to, and even with like success stories that we've had, to kind of come back to where we are now and what's going to happen, I think that those kind of coalitions really need to come back and be grown. There have been some, traditionally in our city, in terms of kind of interfaith committees. Some of the people obviously are getting older and aren't able to run those anymore. I mean, the other thing I would say is it's super important for all of us to remember to not reinvent something that's already happening, to reach out across different sectors in our communities to see what's already going on, like you were saying, who you're already sending out, to build on that, so that you're not duplicating or splitting off services and making it like even more difficult for people to navigate what they need. So I think of starting with that. I do know a lot of people have said that since the pandemic, it's more difficult, but it's not impossible. Like I've done some of these workshops with, League of Women Voters in different areas, and they have really active chapters and are also tackling issues like homelessness in their communities.
Thanks.
Josephine, just a second. Josephine, I was in Northern Virginia for 31 years, so welcome to Seattle, or maybe you should welcome me. I don't know. It was great. It was a great place. There were some great coalitions. There was one coalition, the Facets program, which was really amazing. I don't know if you ever heard of it in Richmond, but
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Dawn. Elizabeth just made a comment that as we age, it's so important to find younger people to mentor into the work. And
Yes, that's why I love teaching. I'm gonna try to continue teaching because yeah, they're not all mentorable or teachable, but there are really some amazing young people, and they give me so much hope for the future.
and we probably have time for one more question if anybody has one.
I have a comment before we close out if
Barbara?
time. Yeah, my name is Barbara Callender. I just wanted to reiterate what the appeal that Maria made at the beginning to reach out to your legislators. I have also been part of the precursor to the Speakers Bureau when it was called Inquiring Mind. I'm currently involved with a project through another program, the Washington Stories Fund program. And it is, and I also worked for the National Endowment for the Arts in the way distant past. So it is so important, I believe, that for us to reach out, keep the arts, the humanities going, because they are lifeblood. And I would urge us to all reach out to not only our national legislators, but also on the state and local level as well.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. And for all of us to remember, like even the head of Humanities Washington has said, what they're doing is illegal, but there's so much illegal, right, that we're kind of overwhelmed. But yes, the humanities, I mean, it is what makes us human. And if we don't have that nurturing and exposure and being able to talk across differences, we're done for.
Yeah.
Also, Maria, is there a way for me to reach out to you? We've got a program coming up, some programs coming up this weekend, and I'd love to maybe have you come or.
How about Barbara? How about let's take that offline, and I can
That's
send
cool.
you email.
That's very cool.
Marcy has my email. I can send it to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
But thank you, Barbara. If I can make a quick comment, I was actually going to make a very similar comment that we need to keep the pressure on our representatives. And thinking about the comment that you made at the beginning about Mayor Bruce Harrell and what he did, I was actually wondering where the people experiencing homelessness that he moved away from Seattle, where they went. I don't know if we have the time for a quick answer to that question.
Other places in Seattle.
Oh, other places in Seattle,
Yeah,
not away
I mean,
from Seattle.
People have to, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, people have like a sense of community oftentimes that they built up. They have medical and, behavioral health and all sorts of service providers. And so it makes no sense to like ship them to some other place because, I mean, that's just, they're still homeless and then they're going to be in worse situation than they already were. So yeah, I mean, people have to move to some other place. I mean, we do try to get them into housing. There's not enough housing options for people who want and need it.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I want to call us to a close and just remind everybody, if you could take one last look at the chat, there are two things I want to draw your attention to. One is the survey for tonight's talk. And then the other is the link to contact your legislatures that Maria forwarded to us. So if everyone just take a moment and do that. And then Josephine, I'll just lift up some beautiful feedback from Chris Jenkins. Very insightful. Thank you for your time. Encouraging. And I will echo that note of encouraging. And I think about what gives me hope. And it is folks like you out there in the world leading with such compassion and grace and giving voice to the voiceless and calling, I think, people forward to care in beautiful ways. So I just want to thank you for the work you're doing in the world and also for everything you offered to us tonight and your wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcy. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Martha.
everyone. Good
Thank you,
night.
Josephine.